and welcome back to the Rave Social Podcast. I'm your host, Jaden, and today we have Jess. Jess is literally such a boss. She has like 83,000 followers on TikTok, which is like just insane. She is an incredible saleswoman. She's so good at social media. She's so good at business and finance. So we're very excited to have her on the podcast today. And Jess and I have known each other since we were like literally in middle school, probably. Like we were both born and raised in St. George. So we have some tea for you, especially Jess. Jess has some tea for you.
Sure. Everyone's going to listen to it from there because if I knew there was two girls on a podcast from St. George, as someone who's from St. George, I would tune in so fast.
No, same. I would need the tea.
No, absolutely. But yes, thank you so much for having me on. It's crazy how we got here, but yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of going for it.
And you're killing it every step of the way.
Oh, thank you.
So why don't you tell us the story of how we met? Apparently, I don't remember this, so this is going to be news to me.
Not necessarily how we met, because I feel like from the same town, especially a small town, you know who other people are, even though you've never met.
Yeah.
I think I always knew who you were, but this is just so funny. And I'm pretty sure I had to have been like 17 or 18 years old. And I had known who you were, but this is so funny. The guy that I dated last, his ex-girlfriend was your best friend. And I'm freaking stalking. I will stalk people. So, of course, I knew everything about your life, and you probably had no idea who I was.
No! Oh my God. And St. George is such a small town that everybody knew who everyone was dating, who they had dated, like their full past roster. So that is just freaking hilarious.
Oh, yeah. It's small enough to know everything about everybody.
Oh my God. And that's so funny. Yeah, I just feel like I knew you just because like just mutual friends. It was like, I don't know. I went to school with like some of your best friends, I feel like. And so, but you went to a different school. You went to Dixie or something. So, right? Yeah. So like we didn't go to the same school, but our friends were like associated. So that's how I knew you.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's a small town like that, but I do kind of miss it.
I know. Sometimes I miss it. I do visit because my parents live there. I think your parents live there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I like to visit, but honestly, sometimes I'm like, it's a little too small, which is actually hilarious because now you live in West Texas. Yeah?
West Texas, and it's so funny because it reminds me so much of St. George. I relocated for my job, so I work in pharmaceutical sales. That's the job that I have. And I moved from Utah to Orlando, Florida, randomly in August of 2022. And I was like, I've got to leave Utah. And I lived in Salt Lake City at the time, so 4 hours north of St. George. Randomly moved to Florida, and I had one mission on my mind, and it was to get into pharmaceutical sales. I had no idea how I was going to do it, but I was going to do it. So I moved to Florida. I lived there for 30 days. And I was working at a restaurant serving tables, and there was a pharmaceutical sales conference at the restaurant because I worked at a hotel restaurant. And I knew it was my opportunity. I asked for a job, straight up. I asked them. I always wanted to get into pharmaceutical sales. How do I do this? I want a job. Who can you connect me with? And it was he's actually not my manager anymore, but the guy who had hired me gave me his card and he said, you got to move to West Texas, but I have a job for you.
Oh my action. That is insane. If you're listening to this podcast and you know nothing about pharmaceutical sales, I don't blame you, but it is one of the most difficult industries to get into. Like you absolutely have to know someone. You're not going to find a job listing on LinkedIn and like apply and get the job. It is like crazy hard to get into.
Yeah, no, and it is so hard to get into, and I can't believe, and you have to be very bold in the job. So I think that's 100% what landed me that job was by asking for the job, because every day you're in sales, you have to constantly close. Yep. Ask for the business. So essentially I was doing exactly what they want to see. I asked for the job. And they were like, okay, sure.
Oh my God. And before that, you had a podcast called She's Intimidating. And I feel like that led perfectly into that because like you are just so driven and bold.
Yeah, no, totally. So that's what She's Intimidating started out with, was just a podcast. I loved her. Maybe we'll bring her back one day. So many people ask me. And I do, but I just don't have the time right now between my corporate jobs and running my business, talking about finances and budgeting. I cannot fit the podcast in right now, but that is how it started. And then I got my job in pharmaceutical sales and I kind of stopped the podcast because I was a little bit scared.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure what the boundaries were, like when it came. So I was like, I'm just going to fill things out for a little bit. And I kind of faded away. But I still have my episodes out there. I did not delete those. They're still.
The way I'm so going to link them, just so anyone can listen to them if they want to. And we're also going to link your budget template. But this is so funny. I was just on TikTok, which happens, scrolling, doing my thing. And then I see Jess pop up and I'm like, hey, I know this girl. And I'm like watching her TikTok. And not only is her TikTok just giving like viral queen, I was like, wait, this is like a really like popular or TikTok. Oh my God, I was going to say real. And then I go to your account and I'm like, holy shit, she's like doing the thing on TikTok. And ever since then I was like, oh my God, like you are just, you blow my mind. You blow my mind. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you decided to start posting on TikTok and like finding your niche?
Yes. So this is very different from what I think that people like talk about all the time. So how I went about it, I started She's Intimidating for my podcast. I can't remember the month. I want to say it was the beginning of 2022 is when I started it. And I was kind of posting here and there. I didn't really have like a niche at that moment, but I was just kind of posting things. And it wasn't until exactly a year ago, it was January of 2023, I started talking about finances and budgeting and like what my parents taught me about money, because my dad was a financial advisor. He was also a physical therapist. He had 2 careers. And I thought it was normal, to be honest. It just shot up and everyone was asking me questions about it. And I was like, oh, I didn't really know that I knew so much about it compared to the average person. And that's when I decided to kind of just change my content down that route because it was doing so well. So I guess I kind of posted everything consistently. I let the audience decide what my niche would be.
So you kind of found your niche like on accident, which is funny because I saw a TikTok randomly like 2 days ago that was saying one of the best niches on TikTok is finance.
And I 100% agree with that. It totally is finance. And I think it's just because it's such a taboo subject. We were raised to not talk about your salaries, not talk about money. But you always wondered, how much is that person making? What's in their bank account? But we were taught not to talk about it.
Yeah. And that's so funny that you say that because when I first met my boyfriend, which we were friends for a long time before we started dating anyways, it was like 7 years ago. And like the first question I asked him, we were just totally friends. I was like, how much money do you make? And he was like, you don't ask people that. Like, what? And I was like, oh, I didn't realize you couldn't ask someone that. Like, I was just curious because like he seemed like he was doing fine and he had just graduated from college. And so I was like, what are you doing? Like, I want to do what you're doing so that I can like have the life you have. And which is so funny that you say that because it is so taboo to me. I was like, whatever, like just ask, but it is taboo.
I think everyone needs to be more open about it, but it's just that we were taught not to be. And it's so funny you say that because I was like seeing a guy randomly a couple years ago and he was a little more aggressive towards it, but every person he came in contact with, like he would have never even met them before and the first thing out of his mouth is, how much money do you make? Like, do not know these people. Stop asking. I get you're curious. Trust me, I would love to know too. But that can't be the first thing you say to people.
Yeah, like people are like, oh my God, yeah, I learned my lesson and I stopped asking. But now people kind of share about it in like the coaching industry or in the business industry. They'll be like, oh, my business made like this much or this much, which I have a love-hate relationship with. Like, I've for sure done it, but at the same time, I'm like, you just like don't get the full story. And also sometimes people are like, I own a 6-figure business. And it's like, that's like a broad range. Like that could be 100,000, that could be 700,000, and those are different numbers. But you on your TikTok, you actually let people submit their like income and budget, and then you'll analyze it for them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like it's a survey on my Stan store. So I have my Stan store linked, and I actually like work with Stan, and so I have to have them in my bio, and that's where I host my budget template. So obviously I'm glad to do that. So I have a survey in there, and that is where people can go in and submit. I ask all kinds of questions, like what their occupation is, how much money they make, what their bills are, what their debt is. I ask them everything. The thing is, this is so popular that I open it once a month, and in 24 hours, I will get hundreds of people that submit things. It's
my God.
I have to like watch it and shut it off. And in fact, when I launched my budget template, it was June 17th. That is when I launched my budget template. And that's the first time I created this survey. And what made me launch it was I was talking about finances on TikTok and stuff, and I had people constantly emailing me because I had my email in my bio asking, hey, will you help me budget? And I was like, okay, I'm just going to create something that helps people budget, and I'm going to promote that because I'm a salesperson. So I knew if I create a product and then I'm the one that promotes it by doing people's budgets, I can get sales that way.
Genius.
And it was pretty smart. I was kind of shocked that I came up with that. And I'm on my way to Mexico. I remember it's like the 4th of July. So my budget template had been launched for 2 weeks at this point, and I'd made $100. And I'm like, oh my gosh, are we dumb? Like, I felt so stupid about this. I flight to Mexico. I get off that flight, and I made $10,000 in hours off of my budget template. And I was
my God.
I was on the ground. I'm like, I haven't even had service for like the last 6 hours on this flight. And this is what happened. Like, it all happened so fast.
Oh my God. That is straight up insane. And like, since then, I know you've done some affiliate work as well, but you said like for this year, for 2023, I guess it's 2024 now, but you had made like $55,000 or something off of like your budget template and your affiliate stuff on TikTok, right?
So my biggest sources of income, number one, is my Stan store. That is where I sell my budget template. I sell my budget template for $6.99. The payment system does take like a 50-cent cut for every sale. So essentially I just end up with like $5.49 per budget that I sell. So they do take a cut, but that is my number one source of income. And then I have randomly through TikTok creativity beta program, and then TikTok shop randomly, I have made money through that. I've done some brand partnerships, but it's not where I put my energy whatsoever. And in fact, I don't take any right now.
Yeah.
Because the power of eliminating. And I've talked about this on my TikTok before. But brands, when they do brand partnerships, yes, you get a cut, but they make way more money off of you. So from the very beginning, if I can eliminate the middleman and create a product that I take almost 100% of the cuts minus my 50-cent fee, I will make a lot more money than making a brand a bunch of money.
Yeah. And for you, like the 50-cent fee, whatever, it's like that is so small. And it was so smart of you to price your budget template where you've priced it, because if someone's buying your budget template, they most likely feel insecure about their budget to a degree. You know, they're like, am I doing this right? I need help, whatever it is. So they're not going to want to invest tons of money. And that fee is so like attainable. That's like a literal coffee, like just so easy. Anyone can afford it. That's why you can sell so many of them. Also, it's just insane how many of them you have sold. Like, you're just so good at this.
I've sold like, I don't know the exact number, but I want to say over $7,000. Not 7,000, sorry. 7,000 budget templates is what I've sold.
Oh,
and
you guys do the math.
Math on that, but
oh my God.
All because I woke up one day, and this is just a huge piece of advice, and I think that a lot of people like to wait for the right timing. And my power with my budget template is I deliberately remember waking up that Saturday freaking morning in June. And I was like, what if I created a budget template? I didn't even question it. I immediately pulled out my laptop. I immediately sat on YouTube. I immediately taught myself this and created it and had it posted 8 hours later. And after I posted it in my head, I'm like, I don't know why I thought I could do that, but I didn't even question it. I just did.
No, I completely agree with you. I think people they're waiting to be perfect. They're waiting for the right time. They're waiting for the money to come in. They're waiting for whatever they're waiting for. And it's like, you just have to do it. You just have to do it. Take an hour, take 2 hours, like do the thing you're going to do and just start doing it. And like, it's the same for your TikTok, which kind of was the foundation for all of this. Like, I know that the budget template and those kind of TikToks that you make drive more followers to your page, but they help each other. And if you hadn't started just posting on TikTok, this would have never happened.
Completely right. And I think with TikTok, I kept coming across tons of people's pages, and we all like different things. Okay, no shade, no shame. But I remember seeing people with just hundreds of thousands of followers, and like they weren't really my vibe. Totally okay, but I'm like, how do they have hundreds of thousands of followers? You know, like I feel like it's pretty natural for a person to think that. And then the one thing that I noticed between everyone, they just posted consistently. They posted multiple times a day, and I was like, that's all it takes. Obviously, there's more behind it. Like, you do need to have, like, people like to learn, like, content like that. But yeah, I just knew that they posted consistently, and I said, cool, I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to post consistently at least 3 times a day, and I'm pretty sure I feel like I've done that since the last year, I would say.
And she has a full-time job, you guys, a demanding full-time job too. Not just like she's not doing nothing all day and she's making time for this, which is just crazy. And maybe if Jess tells you, everyone will listen. You have to be consistent. Like, I just literally die when people are like, I posted for like a month and nothing happened. It's like, oh my God. Like, well, no, duh. Like, it takes more time. It takes dedication. It takes that consistency to build an audience. And like, half the people don't even see your content half the time. So like, you have to keep posting.
I will say your first 10,000 followers are the hardest to gain. They are so hard to gain. And I really wish that I kept track better, and I could probably go look at my TikTok analytics. I probably should do that. But I want to say it was November of last year. Well, I guess 2022. And I had like 5,000 followers, I think. And I don't think I hit 10,000 followers until Christmas time. And that was, I remember it was so hard for me to get 10,000 followers. It took me almost an entire year to get 10,000 followers. But then between 10,000 and 80, an entire year after that, that was fast. That was within a year.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh, the freaking $1 million question. Do you need to use trending audios?
Trending audios. And I want to be better about it because I feel like it does help, but it doesn't need to be your focus. I think where a lot of people do go wrong is they just use trending audios and they do not share their personality. My page, I share my personality. Yes, I'm teaching people things, but I talk to them. I share my personality. And there are times where I think people do not care. I'm like, no one's listening to this. And then I'll get DMs or people will comment on stuff and they'll ask about things that I thought nobody cared about. Like, oh, how's your house coming along? Or what color of green are you doing in your kitchen? And I'm like, wait, we're actually paying attention to things like that?
Yeah. And I feel like one thing that you do really well too is like you'll share some spicy opinions. Like one time you shared about how like women should have their own income, which I completely agree with. So if you guys want to come for me, I guess you can, but please don't because I'm extremely sensitive. But you shared about that and people were like, getting mad at you. Like people were mad, but then there were also people that were like agreed with you.
Yeah, so that is what I also will say that I have strategically done, because controversy is going to cause conversations in your comments. And when people do that, the For You page pushes you. So things like that I post, I knew it would be controversial. I even like posted something about, if you know anything about Utah, there's a lot of Mormons, okay? And I'd even post something about that, of course, caused tons of controversy. And I was strategic about that. I knew it would cause controversy, which is why I posted it, because it would push me onto the For You page, because everyone's going to be talking in the comment section.
Yeah, and I think that goes for both Instagram and TikTok. For some reason, I do feel like that goes over better on TikTok than Instagram, but I still see it working on Instagram a lot when people are sharing unpopular opinions. I also think people on TikTok are more willing to just comment on like random people's content, but you don't really get that as much on Instagram. You don't get as much like random engagement. Like I recently started posting on TikTok and I get like random people and I'm like, I literally don't know who you are, like have any association to you. It's very weird, but I'm like, oh, okay. Like I guess you saw my stuff. I don't know.
So it's definitely pretty normal. I would agree with you. Definitely way more on TikTok than Instagram. And honestly, I need to be better about the Instagram thing. I really don't post on Instagram. I just kind of keep most of it on TikTok, but I feel like it comes down to the time, just the lack of time. I choose to like put my energy towards my TikTok, and that's where I have my following. It's my TikTok.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's push that on my TikTok than Instagram and stuff. But it's all, people are ruthless. People are so mean.
They're kind of scary.
They're terrifying. And I will say, when I first started, it was like the last December of 2022. And I remember like one of my first videos went viral, and people were so mean that I was depressed in bed just crying. Like people, and I mean ruthless. I got a step-by-step, this is how you should, take your own life on. Yes, this is, and I've gotten at least 20 cents then, for sure.
What?
But first, and as sick as it is, it's not like those comments have let up. They absolutely have not. And people will send me rude emails. They will send me things on my Instagram, like DM, but you become so numb to it. Like you really do.
Oh my gosh, you are so freaking brave. I'm sitting here realizing that I've been like, no, don't go viral. Cause like, I'm really scared of that. I'm really scared of people not liking me or being mean to me. And I have even in my very tiny following had people be mean in my comments. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm just going to cry because this is like, how could you be mean to a stranger? You don't even know me.
It just comes down to insecurities with people. And that's kind of where like she's intimidating came from. Was I feel like I tend to bring out a lot of insecurities in people naturally. And what I think that is they see something in me that they are insecure about in themselves. So I think that's where a lot of the hate comments towards people are. They're just jealous. They are very insecure. And in order to make them feel bigger and better, they think that bringing you down is going to do that for them. When in reality, it's like, okay, maybe you should, I would never do that. I would just go focus on myself and look internally, ask myself why I feel that way, and not say something rude to somebody.
Or just like keep scrolling.
Yeah, no. And it's always someone who does not have a profile picture or a freaking username.
You're like, what are you doing on this app? Like, you little troll. What? I just think like, I hope karma is real. I believe in it. I'm like, you know what? You'll get what's coming for you. Like, why are you being mean to strangers on the internet? We do not understand.
You also have to be so sad to focus that much energy on someone else. Like, for the people that send me rude emails, DMs, I'm like, I'm taking up a mental mansion in your brain because you had to sit here and type all this up about me, and I don't even know who you are.
Like, what is driving you to do that? And like, I don't even have time to like comment on people's stuff to like engage and like be a part of their community. how are you making time to just sit there and be mean and write an email? Like you will not catch me writing an email that doesn't need to be sent. What a waste of time.
What a waste of time. But to them, I don't know if it makes them feel better or what it is, but it's like, I would just never let someone take up that much space in my own life. Like, I got my own stuff to worry about.
Yeah, just no, it can't happen. I did have a question about financial stuff. I wanted to, because you have so much intel. What do people waste the most money on? In your opinion?
Okay, so in my opinion, these are the things that you really need to stay away from. I preach about this all day. Stop door dashing stuff. Stop ordering things to your house, okay? I mean, I don't mean packages. I literally mean like DoorDash. Something that you can go out and get yourself. Not only is it double the amount of money, I always compare the price. It's always double, okay? Because they got the fee to deliver it. They got the tip. They got the price increase between the restaurant and where you get it on the app. It's never as good. And it's like, you can just go out and get it yourself. So a lot of people waste tons of money on that. And a huge one I've been seeing lately that makes me so sick inside. And if you are doing this, I'm asking you to please stop. It is Afterpay. It is any of those. It's so bad. It is so bad. I see it on, I would probably say at least 80% of my budgets, the debts I'm seeing are lots of Affirms and Afterpays.
Oh my God. And in my little brain, I could never imagine using Afterpay or Affirm. Like when I see that, I'm just like, this is a trap. Like the alarms go off.
It is the biggest debt trap. And I feel like psychologically people are like, oh, this $100 item, I can split it up in 25 payments over, 4 weeks or however often your payments are. I don't really mess with that, so I'm not sure. They think it's like cheaper for them, and it 100% is not cheaper for them. They're in debt, and they're also buying things they don't need. The things that Affirm and Afterpay, their clothes, their makeup, their shoes, it's not things that you need. It's things that you want and you can't afford right now, but you think you can because you split it up in 4 payments.
Like, here's one way you could do it. Not to shame you, but here's one way you could do it. Save $25 a month for it. And then once you have all $100 saved, then buy it.
Exactly. Because if you cannot afford the full price of something, you cannot afford it.
True.
You can't afford it. That a lot of people don't realize. And I tell myself this with credit cards is like, okay, if you're carrying a balance on your credit card and you go and put something else on that credit card, and let's say that thing's $100, you have to understand that does not cost you $100 if you are carrying that balance. You are going to be paying $130 for that because of it.
And those interest rates on credit cards are not nice. Like,
so bad. In fact, I did the math. So for those of you that don't know, I got myself in a decent amount of credit card debt, like $15,000 of credit card debt. It's fine. Okay. The second time I paid off all my credit card debt, I paid it off at 22. And I want to say I had about like $7,500 in credit card debt at the time. Paid off all my credit card debt. And then at 26, I got into more credit card debt. We love that.
Oops.
And oops, my bad. And I was okay with getting into it this time. Okay, let me explain myself. And the biggest reason is I had spent my entire life savings moving from Utah to Florida. And my job, unfortunately, I'm a contract employee, so it does not offer relocation. So I had to pay for that myself. It involved a lease break fee. It involved, getting a moving truck. It involved paying for not a down payment, but a deposit in a new apartment and first month's rent. It involved so many things. And so I did it, but I also knew, this was in January of last year, I knew that I could have that debt paid off by November. So I was okay with it. Obviously, it was over my head. It made me freaking sick, but I had an entire debt payoff plan. I love my little debt payoff plans. And in fact, dude, my budget template, I was set to pay it off in November, but I had everything paid off in July.
Oh my God.
Well, not all of the debt. I do still have student loans, okay? I do have student loan debt, but my credit card debt. And I was spending the math this time last year, $400 a month in interest on my credit cards.
No shit.
Yeah, 400 bucks. I was like, oh, that's. And the thing is, your minimum payments, like for example, I had a business credit card and my minimum payment was $170 and 130 of those dollars were going to interest, which means only $40 was going to pay off the $5,400 I had on that credit card.
No way.
Yeah. People just don't realize how much interest screws you.
I have always been very afraid of debt. Not to say I'm not in any. Like I have student loans, like I have a car payment. I do have some debt, but I've always been terrified of it. I think for that reason, my parents didn't teach me a ton about money. They also didn't teach me nothing about money, and they're pretty decent with money, so like I had a good example, but I just somewhere in my heart was like scared. Like I am nervous to owe something, because I guess in my head I was always like, I'm gonna have to pay this back eventually. Like, what if I don't get a raise? What if I don't have a bonus? Like how would I pay it off? Like to me, I was like not computing. So I kind of stayed out of credit card debt. I've had credit card debt. I've paid it off, all of that too. But like, I've just been like so scared for that reason.
And I feel like it's a natural response. My motto, I genuinely think that everybody needs to get into debt at least once, because the things that you have to do to get yourself out, like creating a plan, looking at your budget, not spending more than you make, it builds character, first of all, and it teaches you so much. So I'm like, you know what, we all need to learn, and that has taught me so many things, and it brought me this business. I would not be doing this if I didn't dig myself into a bunch of debt. Obviously, a lot cooler if I didn't learn that the hard way, but it was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do was get control of my finances. And I feel like that is very natural for people because it's something that they want to put off. Like everyone wants to put it off. Oh, if I don't look at my credit card, then the money's not there. Or you did this, but because you said student loans, I did this. You would take out your student loans and you wouldn't even check them, not even think about them until you graduated college. You would just take out the student loan every semester.
Yeah, and I tried not to take out student loans, but like I was working full time while I was in college, but I should have been probably smarter about it and like paid it off while I was in college since I was working full time, but I didn't. And I don't have like tons and tons of student loans, and they're all government student loans, so they have a little bit of a lower interest rate, but still, I mean, when that payment, like, okay, so I graduated in 2020 and we were on a payment freeze for like literally ever. And so like,
Until
what was that?
it started. Did you make a single payment like since they did the freeze? I
No.
did not, and I should have.
Yeah. I didn't because they were talking about getting rid of them and I would have qualified. Like I had Pell Grants. So I was like under the amount or whatever. So I was like, these are just going to go away if that goes through. And I don't want to pay money on it that like I could have gotten for free, which is like so stupid. But so I didn't pay.
Same thing. I got Pell Grants, like my student loans. I went out of school with $15,927. That's also another thing I recommend. Like I could name you the exact dollar amount of debt I am in at any point, and I feel like it's powerful to know that. Like at least for yourself, because a lot of people don't know it. They're like, oh, I don't know, I'm around this. No, I can literally tell people the exact dollar that I owe to a specific institution.
You're like, I'm obsessed. And you said, so you're buying a house and your next big thing is that you're going to like pay off your entire mortgage. You guys, she's insane. She's going to pay off her entire mortgage in like 3 years.
Yeah. So between my student loans and my mortgage, keep in mind, I live in West Texas. Everyone's like, how is your mortgage so cheap? So I will be taking out $253,000 will be the final loan for this. The house is like $268, but obviously I have down payment and closing costs and stuff. So $253 will be the final number, plus my $15,000 in student loan debt. So I will be paying off it's like $269,000 and then some change. I don't know the exact number because it always fluctuates and I haven't closed on my house yet. But if I were to pay the minimum payment on my house, on my student loans, okay, pay them off on scheduled time, I would be paying $315,000 in interest on 270K.
Oh
And
my God.
that's how powerful interest is, and I don't think people realize it. I would rather that $315,000 be put in the stock market, invested, not paying for a bank to run. So yeah, I will be starting my plan to pay off 270K starting on February 1st. And I think this confuses people because I have not started, I've paid my student loans, like the minimum payments, but I haven't started to wipe those loans because if you know how credit works, my student loans are my longest outstanding loans. And that means they are bringing my credit history length up. So once those closes, it's going to shoot it down and it's going to bring down my credit. And that would drastically affect my interest rate that I'm getting. And so that is why I have not started to pay them off yet. But once the loan goes through, I'm all about it. And I am creating this plan. I'm going to debt snowball it all. So essentially what I'm going to do is I have 7 student loans, all adding up to $15,000. So I'll debt snowball it, meaning that I will take my lowest loan, which is only like $300, and then I will list lowest to highest, and I will start paying off those loans. And then once that's paid off, then I will attack my mortgage because that'll be the only loan that I have left. And I want to do it by 30. I just turned 27. Now, if I do this by 30, I have to pay $8,144 per month towards my debt for the next 33 months.
Oh my God. But you know what? You could freaking do it. We all know she can do it.
I can absolutely do it. And here's the thing about like goals and stuff. I have set the most random goals for myself and shocked myself. So one thing that I did, and this was like July and August, I set a goal to make $30,000 in 30 days. Before I had even made this goal, the most money I'd ever made in a month was $8,000. So the fact that my Delulu brain was like, oh, that's easy. I can like 4 times this, even though I've never done it before. I've got it. It's fine. And this was right when I had just launched my budget template. So I didn't know what it was capable of doing at this point, but I was like, it's fine. I can do it. And I literally hit $30,380 in 30 days.
Oh my God.
And I was shocked, but I was also like, your brain is so powerful. The fact that I had never even touched this amount of money in my life, and I told myself, I'm going to do it. And it's not enough to just be like, you're going to do it. Obviously, you have to create a plan. Like, okay, I'm going to do it. How can I do it? I have my corporate job. I have my budget template sales, and that's where I have the most control because the more videos I post doing people's budgets, the more money I make on my budget template. So I would say it's not enough to just set the goal. Obviously, you need to like dissect it and figure out how you're going to get there. But I just made this crazy goal and achieved it. And so that's why I think I could pay off this $270,000 in 3 years.
She's going to do it. I promise you. But it's so true. You are. And what is crazy about goal setting is that people, I don't know, we're in this like weird age of like manifestation. Not weird. I guess I love it. I love that people want to be like more energetically connected and stuff like that. But I think there's like this idea, it was the same with like lucky girl syndrome where people were just like, I'm lucky, like good things happen to me. And it's like, yeah, totally. But also if you want that life or you want to reach that goal, like manifestation takes action. You can't just say, I want $1 million and then just sit right here. Like I gotta go figure out how I'm going to make $1 million.
I think that's the big issue. And like New Year's resolutions and stuff, I do love them, but I think people set the ultimate goal. So for example, they'll be like, I want to lose 30 pounds or like whatever their goal is, when it's like, that shouldn't be your goal. Your goal should be, like, for example, one of my New Year's resolutions, I want to run a marathon. I really want to run a marathon. And so my goal wouldn't be, I'm going to lose 20, 30 pounds. My goal would be, I'm going to run a marathon, and naturally it is going to cause me to lose weight. So I think that's what people do, is they set these goals that are like so high, but what they need to do is be setting the smaller goals that is going to reach them, their main
Totally.
goal.
Yeah, like the steps and like what's your plan to get there. Like you may not have all the information at that very moment, but you have to have ideas of like, how could I make that money? How can I run a marathon? Like, how do I need to train? How many miles a day? Like, what do I need to eat? Like, what shoes do I need? Like, you have to have like the things to go with it, or else you can't reach your goal.
No, absolutely. And that's where a lot of people tend to get discouraged, is they set this ultimate goal, they don't break it down, and then they don't reach their goal because they needed to look at it like at an individual level, and then they get discouraged and like, I didn't reach my goal. And it's like, well, yeah, you didn't reach it because you didn't set smaller goals to achieve your big goal.
Yeah, exactly. I'm so with you. And that's why you're a freaking boss. Like, that's why you are doing what you're doing right now, because you learned how to do that.
And I learned as I went. I did not wait for the perfect moment. I just learned as I was doing it. And just like we talked about earlier, that is where people, I would say, tend to go wrong, is they are waiting for that perfect moment. And that perfect moment, it will never come. It's not going to come.
No.
Create that perfect moment by action.
So true. I'm so with you. Oh my gosh. Well, you're a freaking genius. Is there any other like things you want to tell us, either about TikTok or about finance or your pharmaceutical sales, anything that you think would be useful?
Yeah. So I will say, with finance stuff, this is the one thing that is never going to go away. And it is like arguably just as important as the relationship you have with your significant other. Like, that's important. We all, like, want to be loved, have a significant other. But money, your relationship with money, it will never go away. And people, especially people who are in a lot of debt, tend to put it off, thinking like, I don't want to deal with it. And this is like a huge thing when I do my one-on-one coaching calls with my clients. I always say, if you start today to pay off your debt and create a plan and budget your money, this could be the most amount of debt you're ever in. But if you do not start today, it will not be the most amount of debt you are ever in. It won't.
Oh my God.
Problem.
Wow, that's so freaking true. And yeah, debt can feel like you're carrying a extremely heavy, I don't even know, object that doesn't go away. You can't put it down, like it's following you. And it really can impact your entire life. Like it can impact if you can get a house, it can impact like if you can have a drink with your friends or go on a trip, or like it can even just affect like your day to day. Like people get in so much debt they can't afford like to eat. And it's like, I know that there's certain circumstances and certain privileges that like I have that afford me to not get into that situation, but like you still have to be responsible for your money and how you manage it and how you decide to move forward with it.
No, absolutely. And it's actually pretty shocking that how many people don't do this. And I can always tell when they don't do this by how they submit their budget. And my number one indication is everybody should have this. And I do mine on a Google Docs, not my budget template. This is just simply something I've done since I was 17 years old. And it is the 1st through the 30th in a row, every single bill that is due between the 1st and 30th of every month. And I also put my gross paycheck like just underneath, and then what my take home pay is. And I add up all my bills and put it at the top. And this is just like my main document. If anything changes about my finances, I input it there. And then obviously that's what I use to do my budget. But it's just shocking how many people cannot even name me what their bills are, when they are due, how much money they are every single month.
Yeah, you have to know where your money's going.
Yeah. And then you have to, when it comes to budgeting, this is a thing that I say that you're always going to learn about your money. You are going to learn one of two things. Number one, do I have an income issue? Meaning, am I not making enough money to pay for my basic needs? I'm not talking about like shopping, going to get your nails done. I'm talking putting a roof over your head, electricity, a car if you need to go to work. And I'm not talking $1,000 car payments. We'll get into that later. I'm talking like a car to get yourself to work, gas, just like things like that. Do you have enough to cover those? If you do, okay, perfect. You might be having a spending issue. So it's going to reveal that you either don't make enough money or you have a spending issue.
Yeah.
And place that this is where you can kind of gauge how you are doing. And I always recommend, if you're on a biweekly pay schedule, for example, I'm on a biweekly pay schedule. After taxes and everything, my take home pay, I make about $1,900 biweekly. Obviously, a lot of this is affected by like my 401k and stuff because I choose to put a lot of money in there. My goal is to always keep my bills under one of those paychecks, meaning my bills will always be under 50% of my take home pay, not my gross, my take home pay.
Yep.
So I recommend that people do that. Now, if you are on like a monthly or a weekly, obviously that's going to look a little different, but like at least under 50% of your take home pay should be your goal, if not less.
Yeah. And I think with that too, like you can increase your income. Like this is like a podcast for another day, but like there's so many ways for you to increase your income. And it comes with that relationship with money that we were talking about earlier, where it's like, you have to know that you can make more money, whether that's like,
you cut back. Making more money is easier than to cut back on your bills.
100%. Who wants to cut back on things? Not me. And for real. But like, you can make more money like on so many different side gigs. Like, I promise there's something that you're already doing or that you already care about or you're already interested in that you could make money doing, even if it's $100 a month, even if it's $300 a month. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like, there's so many ways you can make more money. And maybe that's the Capricorn in me, because I'm always like, I can make enough money to create the life that I want to live, but like, so can you, I promise.
Yes, everybody can. And that's the hard thing, is like, working a corporate job is safe, right? You get, typically the same amount if you're on salary, every single paycheck, you're on a consistent pay schedule. Whereas, like as a business owner, that pay is like, sometimes you don't really know when your next check is coming, but also your next check could be way more than what you would ever make at a corporate job. So like your pay does fluctuate, but you are 100% in control of that. And not only that, it's like the more work you put into it, the more you get out. Like the months that I made insane money, I was working my butt off to get there. I really didn't put forth that much effort. So it just is directly correlated with the effort that you put into it.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I mean, for me, even when I was working a corporate job, and also like, I'm not a mom, so there's some nuance to this. Like everyone's situation is different. But like for me, even when I was working a corporate job, I was doing things on the side. Like I was doing photography gigs. I was doing social media on the side before I did it full time. Like I was always, and I still do things on the side, even though like my business is my baby and I work literally way too much on it. I still will be like, I'll pick up like a design gig or like a photo shoot gig or like things that I'm still very good at. I'll still pick them up sometimes because I'm like, I like doing it. I like the extra income. And sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Oh, absolutely. And one thing that I always recommend with people is work that corporate job and build, your business. I'm sure this is what you were doing. Build your business on the side. And then once that gets to a point where you're happy with it, you can live off of it, then make that shift. But there's going to be a hustle, right while you're building your business and while you were working your 9 to 5.
A hustle and a pay cut. Like I was making more money at my corporate job. And then when I got to that point where I was like, I can't do both and I want to go on my own, I made that transition and I cut back on my expenses. I cut back on obviously how much I pay myself, because I know that within the next year, I'm going to be able to double or triple that. Like I am not worried about that. And I can still live my life to a comfortable space with my business. So I was happy doing that because I understood the reward that would come down the road.
No, absolutely. And I feel like with that is you have to know yourself. That's what it comes down to. And it is a risk. Like it's a risk becoming self-employed, but it also has a higher reward than working for somebody else.
Yeah. And honestly, my mantra the entire time was like, when have I never not been okay? Like I've never not been okay. I'll figure it out. Like I'll figure it out. And I did. It's the same way that you were like, I'm going to make 30,000 this month. I was like, I'm going to figure it out.
Like, you have to just not let any doubt creep in and go for it. Like, that's what it comes down to, is going for things, not thinking twice about it, knowing yourself, and like your intuition. Your intuition always knows.
Truly. And you've got you. Like, if you don't, this is such a side tangent, but like, if you don't trust yourself, you're not going to trust yourself with money. And you're not going to trust yourself with your income or your business or like anything else. It's like, you have to trust you, that you know how to manage your money, that you can make more money before anything else, I feel like.
No, absolutely. What were you doing? What was your corporate job before you did like social media marketing?
I worked in promotional marketing. So I did like hard and soft goods for like car brands for about 5 years. And then I did influencer marketing for about a year before I started doing social media.
Okay, yeah, that's awesome.
And both were like sales job. Like, I was a salesperson, I was an account manager. So I had like salary plus commission. So I was familiar with the grind and also selling.
Yeah. And that is like one of the biggest things and advantages is selling. So for me, this is so funny, but the two things I always told myself I would never do growing up. I wanted to go to medical school and be an OBGYN originally. Like, that was my goal. And the two things I always told myself I'd stay away from: sales and being a business owner. And it's so, those are straight up the two things that I have done. But I will say, without my job, without being a pharmaceutical sales rep, I would not be where I'm at with social media and sales in my budget template. I have had people be like, well, how'd you make that kind of money on social media? What do you do? And I'm like, easy. Value. You have to know how to market, and you have to know how to sell. If you do not know how to do those things, you're not going to make the money that you need to make.
No, and that's also hilarious because I've had some like different side businesses before, and every time I go like this, I do not want to be a business owner. Every single time I was like, anything but being a business owner, and then here I am, and I actually love it. Like, I really do love it, but it's very similar. I was like, I'm not doing that. But it's funny because that entire time that I was saying I'm not doing that, I was setting myself up to do that.
100%. I totally agree. And like, of course, as a business owner, other people who are business owners will understand. It is the most rewarding thing I've ever done. And it is one of the hardest things I've
so
ever
hard.
done. If business succeeds, that's on you. Great. If it fails, awesome. It's, on me as well. But it is I would say the reward 100% outweighs the risk. But it is a risk, and it's scary, and it is a leap a lot of people aren't willing to take. But I'm sure you would agree with me. I'm so happy that I did it. I'm so happy I took that leap.
Me too. Me too. And it's not for everyone. I think especially for that security, like, I can see people who are like, they don't do well without that like paycheck coming in. And I'm like, that's great. You don't need to be a business owner. But like, if you are, which most of my audience actually is business owners, and so they do get it. We see you guys. It is a grind. But you know what? It really is worth it. And like, at the end of the day, what I love about it is that like, I'm in control. I'm in control of my next raise to a degree. Obviously, I can't control if like the economy collapses or something, but like, to a degree, I'm in control of how much money I make. I'm in control of my day. I'm in control of what I do and don't want to do. So for that reason, it's like, that's worth it.
No, absolutely. It's definitely hard work, but it's for sure worth it. And there's so many things. I'm actually reading Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's kind of like a thing I'm doing on TikTok. Finance books and me don't get along great. I think they're so boring, which is so funny because like I talk about finances and stuff on the internet. So that's one thing that I've been really wanting to do, is just read finance books. So on my TikTok, and I actually really need to post a video on this, but essentially I am right now reading Rich Dad Poor Dad. And if I come across something that I feel like my audience needs to hear or I want to share, I will get on my TikTok and I'll record a video like talking about it. And one of the things that I read recently, and I'm like, this is so genius, and this is truly when I saw my income shoot up through the sky. And that was, the school system teaches you that in order to make more money, you need to specialize in one thing, right? Like, I got a biology degree. So if I need to make more money, I need to go get a master's in biology degree, and I need to, excel my education in biology. But what he teaches is, it's not that. You need to learn a new skill. because all you're doing if you for example, me in biology, like go get a master's degree, all I'm doing is limiting myself because all I have value for is maybe my employer, right? Like, but if you learn another skill, you become valuable to other people. So what he teaches is if you learn more skills, you will automatically make more money. So for me, I have a biology degree, I work in sales. My skill was learning about money and how that operates. And once I did that, learned that other skill, that is when my income increased like crazy.
Yeah. And like, I think people are afraid to learn new things or invest in themselves, which for me, like, no, like I just made an enormous investment in a business coach because I'm like, I know that all of that money that I spend learning something new is coming, that's going to come right back to me tenfold. And I also heard, there's a coach I love, Kinsey Madsen on Instagram. One time she posted something and she was like, if you want to be rich, learn an in-demand skill. Learn an in-demand skill. And that's going to change from quarter to quarter, year to year, like whatever it is. Social media, so in demand right now. Design, so in demand. Yeah, websites, even like your finance stuff, so in demand, especially during a recession where people are like, oh my God, like I can't afford stuff. So it's like, learn those in demand skills and they might change.
Yeah, and you will adapt to that. You will. Like, that's the thing. I feel like people are like, well, what are you going to do if social media goes away? Or like, what are you going to do if TikTok gets banned? That's like, and I'm like, I'm going to figure it out like I always have. I'm not worried about that right now.
Because the skills that you learned on TikTok for sure can be translated to another app. Maybe you end up on YouTube. Maybe you end up as a freaking accountant. Like, who knows? You know what I mean? Like, you have all these skills that can be transferred to like anything.
No, absolutely. In fact, that you say that, like, that is kind of one thing that I want to do is I would love to, and I don't even know too much about it. I probably should ask my dad since he's a financial advisor, but I would love to become a financial advisor. I would love to get certifications that way because there are things that technically I can't do. So yes, I can demonstrate like how I would budget. And that's kind of how a lot of my one-on-one coaching calls and me doing my budget survey, it's essentially me just being like, this is how I would do it if I were in your shoes. But I can't teach people to invest in things or tell them to invest in things. Like there's a line that I cannot cross because I do not have the training for it and I would get in a lot of legal trouble for it. So I think in a perfect world, maybe we're manifesting this. I would love to become a financial advisor and then I would love to manage finances of influencers.
Oh my God. That would be you'd be so good at that.
Interesting to just know because another misconception, which I'm sure you know, is if you have a lot of followers, you're going to make a lot of money. And that is so not freaking true.
Oh my God. This is something like I always talk about this on my TikTok. Always. I just started it, but it's like, it was one of the main things I talked about because people think that just because you have a lot of followers, you make a lot of money. One, they also think if they don't have a lot of followers, they can't make a lot of money. Literally both not true. If you see someone that is not making a lot of money, but they have a lot of followers, it's because they haven't monetized their audience and they don't know how to do sales. They don't know how to do business.
No, 100%. And another thing that I really noticed with that, like you're totally right, but this is how I always know when an influencer makes good money or not, is if they have their own product. Because if they have their own product, no one is taking a cut of that sell. They get all of that money and they're going to end up with so much more money than someone who is constantly like doing brand deals and things like that. And I feel like not a lot of people talk about it. And I've always been curious, like what people are making. For example, someone had posted and he had like 350,000 followers. Like, okay, this is what I made from doing social media. And he was strictly doing brand deals. And in 2023, he had made $30,000, which is good money. Don't get me wrong. You know, like he is still working his corporate job. But then I have 83,000 followers and produced $54,000. So it totally is not about your following. It's how are you going to market yourself? And I think not enough people treat their social media like a business, but that's what it is. It's a business.
That is what it is. And if people are following you, the chance that they're going to invest in you is like honestly pretty high. Like it's just like, that's how it is. And I think people feel weird about selling, but like you have to stop doing that. Like that's one of those relationships with money that's just like, it doesn't make sense. It's like, we are all trying to make money. And the more money that you make, the more money everybody else makes, as long as you're not like freaking Jeff Bezos. Because if you have more money, you're going to spend more money, you're going to invest that money, and it goes all together. Like you making more money is a benefit to everyone around you.
No, 100%. And in fact, speaking of the money thing, I do watch some Dave Ramsey stuff. I do. I don't know everything he says, but the one thing that he says that I'm like, I 100% agree with this. And he says that if you do not learn how to manage your money, like money flows from people who do not know how to manage it to people that do. So, you know, like the people that do end up becoming like billionaires, that's because people are spending money on things, they know how to manage it. You know, like even for me, I know how to manage, and other people's money, technically, that probably do not know how to manage their money, it's flowing to me. So it's like, it's such an important skill to learn because money flows from people who don't know how to manage it into people that do.
Yeah. And guess what? There's enough money to go around.
Absolutely. Like money, it's a system that flows. It's constantly flowing. It's constantly flowing like in your bank account, out of your bank account. Like money is a system. In fact, this was one of the biggest lessons that my dad taught me about money. And there are things that I do that I probably shouldn't do because we know that tipping culture got out of hand, right?
Ugh.
I will leave less, and I'm not saying everyone else should do this, but I always leave 20%. Even in the Starbucks line, everywhere, I leave 20%. And one thing that he taught me was the more giving you are with your money, the more it will come back. And it's not in the way you think. He says that it's because it teaches you not to hoard and hold on to your money. You see it as a flowing system. And so, like, in your mind, that's why he's like, the more giving you are with it, the more it'll come back to you. It's a system that flows. Because a lot of people will start to, like, hoard their money and save it. And they get so scared about, like, investing it or spending their money. And obviously, we need to live within our means. I'm not saying that, but, like, the people that are just, like, hoarding their money, they're not going to make more money because their, like, limited belief around money is if I spend it, it will not come back to me.
And it won't, if that's how you think.
Back to you for sure. So, I mean, culture has gotten out of hand though. Like, do not get me wrong, but you know, the more money, the more it comes back. So for me, I just always do it, and I cry time, but I'm like, nope, I got to do it.
I know, like honestly, one of my like abundance mindset goals is like to be one of those people that just like is an over tipper. Like I always tip good. Like I always tip at least 20%, if not more. But like I just want to be one of those people that's like, yeah, I go to dinner and I just leave like a 30% tip because like I can. Like that's the person that I want to be. And so like that's what I'm going for.
No, sure, I totally agree with that.
I love this. Oh my gosh, this conversation has been so good. I have just one more question for you, and it's if you could give your younger self, oh my god, a piece of advice, what would it be?
Okay, I feel like I've said this a lot, but it's so true. And that is to go for it. Do not wait for things. Don't wait for the perfect time. And in fact, I was thinking about this the other day. My younger self, I'm like, how would young Jess feel about who I am today? And to be honest, I think I would love her. I really do. Like, I think I would be so proud. Actually, I know I would be so proud of who I've become. And that has just been so sure of myself, not questioning things. And that would be my advice for my younger self is go for it. Just go for things. If you want to do it, do it.
Yeah, that gave me like a full body chills because I haven't thought about that for a while. Like, what would my younger self think of me? And my younger self would be like, you're a freaking boss. Like, good job. You went for it. Like, you're doing it. You're like making a life for yourself. That's crazy. So I have like chills, but that is such a good piece of advice. Stop waiting. Just do the thing.
And it's like, there's so many people that will like come into my DMs or even like people that I know that will be like, well, how did you do it? Like, how did you get started on TikTok? And, you know, what do I need to do? And it's like, post. You just need to do it.
Step number 1.
Step number 1, be consistent. Be consistent. And eventually, like for me, if I stopped posting, I have enough people that like trust me and follow me that they would be like, dude, what the heck? Where are you?
No, I would. I'd be like, where'd she go? I freaking love her TikToks.
And do you know, I've not openly admitted this, but this is one thing about me that I think when it comes to social media, I do not see myself being on it forever. In fact, I see myself just doing well on it and making a bunch of money and managing that money correctly and disappearing.
Yeah, of course. I feel like that's everyone. I mean, you might be a photographer and you love photography, but that's not your end game, you know? It's like, I don't want to do that forever. Like, I want to do something else. And you should.
No, for sure. And it's like, it's hard to share everything on the internet. Like, people will bond with you, of course, and like they will, get to know your experiences and, they will go through similar things and stuff, which is great, but it also room for people to attack that stuff about you.
Mm-hmm.
That's hard. It's hard on your mental health. It genuinely is one of the toughest things. Absolutely worth it. Don't get me wrong. And you've got to learn to like separate yourself from the people that want to see you fail, because people do. They want to see you fail. For sure.
Yeah. I haven't even really seen that like big virality that like you have, but even sometimes like looking at my own Instagram account, I'm like, oh my, like people are like perceiving me and it gets overwhelming. And I'm like, I have to hold up this like persona of who I am online. Like, and what if like I meet someone and I'm rude to them? Like, I'm not going to be because it's not who I am. But I'm just like, online, I'm like really happy and bubbly and personable. And that's how I am in real life too. But like, what if I'm not? What if something happens? I don't know. Like, I get that in my head too, where I'm just like, people are watching what I do, even if it's a small number of people, they're still watching me.
No, absolutely. Yeah, people do watch and they're silent about it. And then they'll say something to you, like I said, where, I have people that will just say things and I'm like, oh my gosh, I genuinely thought that no one was paying attention or anybody cared. And then they'll say random things about it. And one of the really nicest things, and it's like, I feel so fulfilled with what I do and like teaching people about money and making a difference. I genuinely feel like I'm making a difference in people's lives. And on the opposite ends of like getting hate and people being rude, there's truly people that will like send me emails and DM me that are like, you have changed my life. You're so inspirational. Like they will just send me so many words of encouragement. And truly one of those words can like erase all the bad things that have happened and all the rude things that people say. And it's like, I always told myself, even if I could make a difference in one person's life, I've done my job. But obviously I love that it has been more than one person. It's been about 80,000 people.
Crazy. Seriously crazy. But I think that your perspective on it is what has led you to have that, community of people.
No, absolutely. In fact, you know what? I do have a question for you because,
okay.
Because, all right. So I like hit 80,000 followers recently and I went to a Dallas Cowboys game and their stadium, 80,000 seats. Okay. So I'm like stepping in there and I'm like, that is a lot of people. 80,000. So I'm curious because like in my eyes, I'm like, oh, I mean, it is a lot of followers, but I don't see myself as having like tons of followers. But in other people's eyes, they're like, oh my gosh, 80,000 is a lot. So do you know how people say like, you're a micro influencer, you're a mid tier, like what is that? What are those numbers?
I feel like they've changed. Like I did a podcast about a year ago exactly talking about this. And at the time it was like micro influencers were kind of like 5 to like 15,000. There was like about 5 tiers of influencers. There was like micro, like mid-level, whatever. I don't remember all the names of them, but I feel like it's changed. It's kind of like scaled up. Like I would say a micro influencer now could have like even 20,000 followers. I mean, just because like audiences, there's more people online and those accounts are growing. And so I think it's probably scaled a little bit. But also, so I mean, I guess I should just say I don't really know what you would call yourself. Probably like a mid level, because like you're going to have like celebrities who are like millions and like that's just different. And then you have people who have like 500,000. Like it's just so broad. I honestly don't really know exactly what I would call you. But I also think something that's weird about the influencer industry is people just put influencers in categories by their number of followers. But I honestly feel like it should be more based on like their engagement rate. Cause it's like a micro influencer, yeah, they're going to have a higher engagement rate. So it's like maybe an account that has like 50,000 followers, but has like a 10% engagement rate is like a micro influencer. But there could also be an account that has like 500,000 followers and has a 20% engagement rate, which would be insane. And then they're going to be like a way bigger influencer. Does that make sense?
That totally does. It definitely, I agree that it does have to do with engagement rates. And it also is changing, like you said, because I see so many people pop up that have tons of followers. Like it's definitely more people are getting more followers.
Yeah,
for sure.
it seems like it. So honestly, I don't know, but maybe we'll have to do some research and have an episode on that.
Oh, for sure. And I will say the goal always changes. I remember when I first started TikTok and I was like, I will take 20,000 followers. That's it. I hit 20,000. I'm like, I just want 50,000. I hit 50,000. I'm like, please get me to 75. And now I'm like, okay, 100. But I feel like that's constantly going to change. I do know one thing about myself, and I say this, but if I ever get there, don't hold me to it. I don't want an insane amount of followers. Like, I never want to be someone with like tens of millions of followers. I do not want that for myself.
I don't think I could handle that.
I don't think I could either, but I would love myself a few hundred, for sure.
For sure. I think you'll get there too. Oh my gosh, this is such a fun conversation. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate you. And I just feel like this was so valuable and awesome. Thank you so much.
Gosh, of course. Thank you for having me.